Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm a long-time Final Fantasy XIV player and I'm also very passionate about mechanics and trying to understand them on a deeper level. I've been enjoying Endwalker recently, going into party finders and trying to help people clear, and I've met quite a few players that are struggling with a particular mechanic from Zodiac Extreme, called Astral Eclipse. So I prepared a little something here. I know it might look confusing, but I'll walk you through it. Keep in mind this is not a video about how the mechanic works, more what's happening within the game during said mechanic. So on the top left you can see the arena with some general cardinal and intercardinal directions, and under it I've written every pattern of stars that I've seen. I've given them some names. They're not exactly important, it's just to distinguish them. The most important ones are middle and arrow. Then I went through all my recordings of the runs that I did, and I've copy pasted each shape to each star. I've written also the save spots based on the point of view that we have during the fight. For example, we are watching star 1 from west. Anyway, there are only 3 patterns for each star. For example, star number 1 can have middle, can have arrow, or north and south. Furthermore, you'll notice immediately that some patterns are shared between stars. Middle can happen to any of them, arrow can happen to the first and the third, sides is second and third, and north and south first and second. So I've written some general rules over here. A sequence of stars cannot have the same pattern. There's never been a run where I've seen middle happening twice. Star number 1 and 2 or 2 and 3 cannot have the same save spot. The developers want you to move. There has never been a run where I've stood on the same save spot for 2 stars. So already with these 2 rules, we can try to understand how the sequence is created within the game. Let's move to the first star sequence, starting from middle. On star number 2, middle cannot happen again, so we are left with these 2 options, sides and north and south. Now, let's say that star number 2 is sides. Sides cannot happen again here. Middle has already happened for the first star, so we can predict that arrow is going to be star number 3. On the contrary, if the second star was north and south, middle has already happened again, and north as a safe spot is shared with the arrow. They don't want you to be standing on the same safe spot, so the third star will always be sides. Let's quickly go over the first star sequence again. So when we are starting from middle, I look for the second star. If it's sides, the third one will always be arrow. If it's north and south, the third one will always be sides. Now moving over to the second star sequence, we start with the arrow shape. And since west is the same save spot as this pattern for the second star, the side pattern, the options for star number 2 are only going to be middle and north and south. Therefore we check the second star. If it's middle, since arrow has already happened and middle has already happened, it will always be sides. If the second star is instead north and south, we have 2 options for the third star. One is middle, while the other one is grayed out over here. I added this one, but I've never seen it happening in my recordings. And another thing I did, here you can see, I've written the amount of times the middle has shown up in a given sequence, and quickly found out that there is only one sequence when middle doesn't show up. This led me to rule number 3. Middle pattern is always present unless exception sequence. This will explain why I've never seen this happening as the third star. Therefore, we are left with 2 possible outcomes when we are starting from west. I look for star number 2. If it's middle, it's always going to be sides. If it's north and south, last one will always be middle. Let's move now to sequence number 3. We are starting with north and south here. As you can see, it's shared between star 1 and 2, so it cannot happen again. We have 2 options. We have sides and middle. If it's sides, we are going into the exception sequence. There will be no middle pattern. So from star number 3, if we remove sides and middle, we are only left with the arrow. If the second star is middle, we have two options, but again one of them is grayed out because I've never seen it happening. And I believe the reason is that the developers didn't want you to corner yourself into a dead end while doing the mechanic. What I mean by this is, if people were to go southwest in the second star, they would quickly find themselves into a corner. We found them right here, with no possibilities to reach in time north or east. So this led me to rule number 4. Every save spot has to have a subsequent adjacent save spot for the next star, which leaves us with only one option for star number 3, since middle has already happened, arrow cannot be, so it's always going to be side. Going over it again quickly, starting from northwest, we check for star number 2, if it's sides, we have the arrow, the exception sequence. If it's middle, it's going to be sides. Now, with all this in mind, we can write down a simple resolution for the mechanic based on the first save spot where we are starting from. And I've tested this in Party Finder yesterday and it worked every single time. So starting from middle, I check if it's west or north, the second one, and I know where to go for the third one. You will be able to tell the save spot for the third star without even looking at it. Granted, it requires some memory work, but I find it interesting that it can be done. And that's basically it. I hope this has been informative and helpful for you. Good luck with your clear and farm parties, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you.